No, Jimmy Kimmel, give it up already. I mean, it's like, it's done. No one wants you on TV. You got 70 affiliates that are like, no, please get this guy away fast and get him away today, now. I'm telling you, Bob Iger is in some tough you-know-what. And this guy, Jimmy Kimmel, I think he's acting like, what's that meme? Like Grumpy Cat? He looks kind of angry here, does he not? Oh, yeah. Someone found him. Someone found him in the airport.
How did Obama do?
Listen, I'm not interested in this. How many times do I have to tell you?
You didn't tell me that.
He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it because guess what? This is a career ender. I mean, finished, finito. And you can go on all you want. Oh, this is President Trump doing this. It's not, actually. It's the affiliates, because the affiliates are like, gee, we have a lot of people here in some pretty big markets, including, we're talking markets like DC, we're talking markets like Philadelphia, that don't actually align with Jimmy's school of thought. I mean, Jimmy's school of thought, which is left of left of left. I mean, for goodness sakes, the guy hasn't even had, oh, forgive me, he had one conservative on his show in 3 years' time. What's that about, ladies and gentlemen? That's about propaganda with a capital P, okay? I'm sorry, but when you only put libs on your program over and over and over again, I think we do actually have an issue. So here's the New York Times writing on this saying local TV giants, they're refusing to air this thing. They don't want anything to do with them. Together, these two TV station groups, and we're talking about Sinclair and Nexstar, they control more than 20% of all of ABC's local affiliates. So he's losing 20% of his market, and Bob Iger's sitting there going, what do I do, right? Like, nobody wanted me in this job to come back anyway. Here I am. The stock is doing miserably bad. I mean, I think it was like 123 when he came in. It's now like 113. The stock hasn't moved anywhere in 5 years. Actually, maybe it has. It's moved down like 10%. Well, the stock market has doubled. So basically, you got dead money in Disney. You need a new CEO, for goodness sakes, a new CEO and fast. And this guy clearly can't figure it out. So again, this is not the one I wanted to show you. Fox News is apparently buying TikTok, but that's another story. I think we covered that yesterday. Did you guys see that? Some concerns about maybe a little too much Fox in the conservative media world. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about ABC, which is the liberal media world, and the liberal media world has gotten super duper liberal. I do want to touch on what's going on at the UN. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, back to poor Jimmy, because even People magazine is saying, you know, this is sort of atrocious. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel had an opportunity to go on and apologize to Charlie Kirk's family. I mean, it might be kind of a nice thing to do. I mean, you just said that the guy that ended his life, ended that beautiful marriage he had with his wife, Erica, ended those children's hope of having a father. You were asked to apologize because you said that the guy who did all that was actually a MAGA person, which you knew wasn't true. Everyone on your 200 producer strong team knew was not true, and yet you did it anyway, Jimmy. And you don't have the common decency and the kindness to actually go and say, hey, you know, I'm gonna apologize for this. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Because you're kind of, I don't know, maybe a bad person. Maybe you actually believe all this propaganda that you're selling. You know, Johnny Carson actually said this, and I played this on my shorts clip over the weekend. Johnny Carson talked about how he never went down that road. He did this interview in the 1980s with 60 Minutes. I think it was with Mike Wallace. And he was like, you know, why would I do that? I'm an entertainer. I don't need to get into that because at that point, like, I'm really trying to sway people in a political way, and that's not my job. My job is to make them laugh. Well, Jimmy apparently saw it as his job because 3 whole years and only one conservative guest, and that guest was none other than James Woods, and he's tweeted about this, and he's like, oh, I had to be super careful, and there are all these restrictions and this, that, and the other. Give me a break. You know, we don't need it. Half the country doesn't want to watch you. And by the way, your ratings have sucked, okay, for 10 years. Look at this in the last decade. And granted, part of this is that everybody's coming over here, right? Like this is where it's at over in streaming land at YouTube. I hope that you're subscribed, that you're sharing, that you're commenting, all that stuff. I can't actually read your comments in real time, so careful, careful. But look at this. You know, he's lost 72% of his viewers in the key demos. So these ratings were a disaster. You know, if I'm Disney, I want them gone anyway. Who the heck needs a 200-person produced show on at an hour that nobody watches. And by the way, it's not like the clips go viral or anything. Why? Oh, because they're stuck in the dark ages where if I were to even run a clip without proper permission and, some kind of contract signed, guess what? I can't even run it. I can't run it because I'm going to get hit with a bunch of copyright dings by these morons who, if they knew any better, they would say, Trish Regan and everyone else, please run our material all day long. Run our material because we actually still want to be relevant. But they don't understand the new world in which they live. They don't understand the fact that they have all become dinosaurs overnight. I'll tell you who understands. One, President Donald J. Trump.
Would you don't like be grounds for losing a broadcast license?
Well, I think when a network is dishonest, certainly if they are dishonest because they give you 97% bad publicity or whatever it is, some ridiculous number, yeah, I would say that would be grounds. Yeah.
Just a little, So before everybody flips out, oh, this is free speech, I just want to remind you of a distinction. We've been going through this over the last couple of days, but I think it's important to just say it again. I've worked in network television. I've worked in cable television. Now I work in streaming. They're very different business lines. But I can assure you that whenever I was at network television, broadcast TV, it was actually really important. This was back in the day, okay? We're talking, I started there in 2004. So that was actually back in a time when there was management that cared about having both sides and you were very careful about how you phrase things. Everything went out the window starting in 2016 when Donald Trump walked down that escalator. I know. They know, they can pretend otherwise. But back in the day, you were actually really careful to make sure you always had both sides because that was part of the obligation. It's like the 1934 Communications Act. And you have an obligation to be very fair because you're there for community interest and the community relies on you. Well, what happens when you're no longer fair? What happens when you have only one side? What happens when you're Jimmy Kimmel and you only put one conservative on your show in 3 years' time? Well, then you become something else. Then at that point, you are a wing, an arm of the Democrat Party. And that's where I believe the FCC has some room to run. If Jimmy wants to do this show over on MSNBC, be our guest, right? Hey, Jimmy, you can go do that all day long and you're fine. Just like Greg Gutfeld has his show on Fox and it has a conservative bent, right? He can do that. Totally fine to do because it is cable television. But when you're talking about public airwaves, it's a different kind of thing. Donald Trump has brought this up over and over again, with this idea that you have to have some public good. Disney could be forced to choose between Jimmy Kimmel and the NFL as a massive ESPN deal looms. That's another big headline coming out today, this in the New York Post. The reason for that is that they do need to get some approval from the FCC. And let's just say the FCC is not really in the approval kind of mindset these days, right? The FCC has a whole lot of power and they don't seem afraid to be able to use it, which I think could actually result in one Bob Iger possibly losing his job. Again, the stock price has been a disaster. Disney theme parks. You want to talk a disaster, for goodness sake. So crowded, you got rides breaking down. Who the heck wants to sit there after you've paid $100 and God knows what dollars to sit in a line for 3 hours? It's out of control. They need to fix that. Nobody's going to go and do that anymore. Not to mention all these lousy movies. Look at the Marvel franchise. It's just a total disaster. They kept going woker and woker and woker and woker, and they thought it was going to make it better and better and better. And you know what? Nobody wanted to see their movies. Everybody stayed home, so they have not had any successes. They keep coming up with sequels because there's not an original thought in these brains. That's what happens. They figure they can just wokeify Snow White, and it will all be good. Now, that's not how it works, guys, okay? You're going to have to create the new Snow White. You're going to actually have to use some creative talent, but where's your creative talent? When you only hire people based on, do they check a box? That won't work. It doesn't work in any environment. Maybe you got some brownie points from the Biden administration for that. You're definitely not getting any brownie points from this administration for that. But let's just talk about succeeding as a business, politics aside. People just want to watch a good show. They want to take their kids to a good show, have them watch it, enjoy it. Maybe they want to watch some late night TV on old-fashioned traditional television. And maybe they don't feel like getting bombarded with the chaos that Jimmy Kimmel, or lies, frankly, that Jimmy Kimmel is putting towards them. And so from a pure business standpoint, politics aside, I mean, you guys made some wrong decisions. And I would just say that Bob Iger, Bobby boy, you know what? You're getting up there. Aren't you past retirement age as it is? Just retire, for God's sakes. I know you hate to talk about that. I know that because his PR person, whenever he would do an interview with me, would always say, please don't bring up retirement. So I'm bringing it up with a capital R. ETIREMENT. It is time, Bob Iger, buddy boy, to give it up. You got 2 young kids. Go spend some time with them and your beautiful wife, okay? She's got a great soccer team as well. Focus on that because you haven't been able to mind the store. You haven't been able to manage this business. This should not have gotten so out of control. Maybe if you had said to Jimmy, gee, what are you thinking for a monologue tonight? A guy who was kind of important in the conservative unisphere, he just died. And maybe there should be a sensitivity chip amongst you and your producers when it comes to that. Instead, do you know, he was actually going to double down on it. If you're looking at this picture right here on the live show as we are live right now on YouTube, I'm looking at Dana Walden and I'm looking at the Disney CEO, Bob Iger. You got Jimmy in the middle. So Dana and Bob found out that Jimmy was going to go on the next night and double down on his lies. He was going to double down and say, yeah, this kid was part of MAGA, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh gosh, you know, we can't have that. And that is why they pulled his show. But today, now they're out with a statement. And they say, well, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation and an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show to air on Tuesday, i.e. tonight. So, you know what? Here's the moral of the story. Dana, you're out. Bobby, you're out. Jimmy, you're out. You guys have a lousy company, and now this thing just blew up in your face. I don't know how you survive it. I mean, the Bud Light CEO, he got to stay another day. But the marketing gal, she went. And the head of marketing for that company, he went. And the Target CEO, he went. I mean, you see how these things happen. We're talking about a boycott on all sides for Disney right about now. Yeah, nobody likes Disney. It's happening all over the place. So when I look at these people in management, I'm like, I don't know how you stay on. I'll tell you, Mike Eisner doesn't know how they stay on. He's the former head of Disney. He was actually a pretty good CEO. He and I used to work together over at CNBC. He had a show on CNBC. I also had a show on CNBC. 11 a.m. every day, top-rated show. We're growing here too. 1 million strong and counting. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Anyway, Michael Eisner, that's what I called him, right? Did I call him Michael Eisner? You can see his picture there on the screen. He's out like saying, what the heck are you doing, Bob? You know, you got to stand up. You got to stand up for your talent. Okay, fine. You know what? Stand up for your talent, but you shouldn't have your talent, or the inmates, as I should say, running the asylum. In other words, somebody had to manage this entire apparatus that is Disney long before it became so crazy. And so at some point in that 3-year period, you might have said to Jimmy, hey, let's try and book a couple conservatives. I mean, heck, you got your friend Arnold on The View the other day. It nearly knocked Joy and Whoopi off the couch when he dared to say that, oh gosh, you know, if you're staying in someone's country as an immigrant, you ought to show some manners. Right? So do a little more of that. Do more. I mean, you got to know a few conservatives out there in La La Land, right? I mean, we've seen some, like a few of them who have come out actually for Charlie. But this is the problem you're now in. You got a boycott underway from the left and the right. So celebrities are threatening to break ties with Disney. You've got conservatives saying, well, I never want to see another Disney thing again. No, thank you. And that, by the way, conservatives are the ones that used to go to the theme parks. Seriously. I remember when I first went to Fox, like I liked Disney back in the day. I mean, I liked it so much. I was like, I think we should get a timeshare. My husband's like, first of all, timeshare. Second of all, Disney. And I'm like, I love it. It felt so Americana, but it's just deteriorated ever since Donald Trump came into power. Or perhaps we should say since Bob Iger and then the second Bob, remember Bob Chappell came in and then we have Bob Iger again. So our third Bob in 10 years, this is not going well. I'm looking for Michael Eisner again, okay? Even if he's liberal, he knew how to run a company. And I don't think he would have allowed Jimmy to do what Jimmy did. I don't think he would have allowed The View to do what The View has done. I don't think he would have allowed these theme parks to have these insane lines with rides breaking down all the time, all while you're charging a gargantuan fortune, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think he would have said, okay, let's rely on sequel after sequel after sequel and let's just wokeify it so everybody will really love it. Wrong. Okay, so John Oliver now, he's coming out on HBO and he's blasting. I mean, like, everybody is blasting Jimmy Kimmel and Bob Iger. Jimmy Kimmel's getting it from the conservatives. Bob Iger's getting it from the libs. Everybody's boycotting the company. So really and truly, I ask you, how does this company stay in business? Keep in mind what's happening at this point. You got Nexstar. You've got Sinclair. They control big, big, big affiliates, including in DC and Philadelphia. They're not going to put them back on the air. So, like, clearly, whatever you were doing, talking to Jimmy all these last few days alongside your colleague there, Dana, like, you guys didn't get through to him because he's not willing to do anything. So, nothing's changed. This is the career ender for Jimmy Kimmel and quite possibly the career ender for one Bob Iger. Couldn't happen to a nicer team, right? Jimmy Kimmel on his way out. Mark my words. When have I been wrong? When have I been wrong? And you know what? Jimmy Kimmel's not the only one. You got stuff going on over at The View. We've talked about that. It's going to happen, okay? It's just going to happen. Here he is talking about, this is Donald Trump just a couple of weeks ago. Well, what the heck? I mean, they aren't paying anything for these FCC licenses. So he's like, maybe we just fine them. Maybe we just give them these really big licensing fees, because how can you be functioning like this? You don't have any Republicans or conservatives on your show. You give unfair coverage to one side at all times. Enough is enough, right? It seems to me. Seems to me, ladies and gentlemen, for goodness sakes. Quick shout out for our friends at Balance of Nature. I am free over here on the Trish Regan Show. You know why? Because I get guys like this and gals like this over at Balance of Nature. And I have all of you that tune in every day, and then hopefully you buy the products I tell you to buy, because it's a big part of this business. So thank you to Balance of Nature for supporting the show. Thank you to all of you that are taking Balance of Nature and therefore supporting the show. You can get 35% off with code word Trish. What's great about this stuff is if you look at the back of the bottle, you're going to recognize every ingredient on there, because these are real ingredients, and that's not always the case with some of these supplements, shall we say. So one of the things I like, I take the fruits and veggies, is that I don't have to do all the shopping and I don't have to do all the chopping. I try to eat well. I had broccoli last night, here, but it was just broccoli and there was no fruit. So this is one way of making sure you're getting all the nutrients that you can get from your fruits and veggies. Go check them out, balanceandnature.com today. Use code word Trish, free shipping, 35% off. Really, really great stuff. Also, you heard me talking a little bit about Disney stock price. We've written on this at 76 Research. We've written on a lot at 76 Research. One of our stocks is just a lot of our stocks are just killing it, but Qualcomm, I'll just give you the name, what the heck, right now. We had written about them maybe about 6 months ago or so, a while back, and it's been a great success story. So many of our picks have been great success stories. I encourage you to go to 76 Research, use code word dollar today, DOLLAR, and get that report, the 76 report. That's my newsletter. If you're more ambitious, you can sign up for the actual model portfolios. Again, really, really important stuff to do right now. We've got a UN situation. I'm glad I'm not in New York City today. Donald Trump's over at the UN, and he's really telling them off, as only Donald Trump can. This stuff is great. I have so much good sound to play you because it is hysterical. Okay, so first of all, we got a few little tech issues going on. What's that about? I mean, did you see the escalator just stopping? I want to show you this here. The escalator just gave out. Okay.
What is your message in light of the Palestinian
Do you see that? Okay, so they're approaching. They're getting close to the escalator. They're approaching, and then all of a sudden, dun-dun-dun, it stops. Totally stops. There's the President Melania, so they climb up. That's a little peculiar, don't you think? I mean, so, okay, whatever. The escalator had a problem. But then there's another problem. We just put this one in my shorts feed. The teleprompter was busted. We got some issues going on at the UN. I mean, first the escalator, now the teleprompter.
I don't mind making the speech without a teleprompter.
He doesn't need one.
Because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
You better believe it. Yep. Big trouble. I mean, is it a coincidence? Oddly, the director of Homeland Security came out with something on Twitter today. He posted saying that they had actually found that there was an attempt to try and take down the cell phone networks around the UN, and they thwarted that a while back, and they wanted everybody to know they were safe, etc. But what was the attempt to take down the communication? I'm like, okay, well, so they weren't able to do that, so they decided to have the teleprompter go out and the escalator go out. Come on, is that petty or what? It could just be a coincidence, let's say. We'll go with that. Anyway, he had a very pointed message for all those Europeans all into their NATO thing. He's like, careful. Quite a warning. Let's listen in.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
So he was pretty direct, pretty pointed. And again, he's talking about the sort of open entry that they've had from so many people in the Middle East coming into parts of Europe and not really adhering to the cultural norms of Europe. I've reported on this in the past. For example, in Germany, where they did, under Angela Merkel, they welcomed all of these Syrians in as refugees. The problem was they had no way of integrating them into society. So they couldn't write German, they couldn't speak German, and they had a set of customs that was extraordinarily different from any that the Germans were used to, including, this one always got me, I guess, as a woman, the swimming pools. So there's a tradition in Germany that everybody goes to the swimming pool. It's like the YMCA, right? You go to the pool, you swim together, and they suddenly had to start changing that after putting up signage everywhere saying you can't grab women, you can't grab their swimsuits, that you actually couldn't defecate in the pool. I mean, wild, right? But they were trying to teach them on this etiquette, and it wasn't working. So ultimately, what many of these pools in these local communities did was they decided they would have separate hours for swimming when it would be women or men, so that you wouldn't have women and men swimming together. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm sorry, but like, why are you changing your culture for them? They are the guest, to go back to what Arnold Schwarzenegger told Joy Behar, and she nearly fell off her seat. You're the guest, right? So you have to adhere to their customs. It is what it is. And so Germany shouldn't be changing themselves. London should not have to change themselves. You have a group of people that have already been there. If you're coming in, you would think that you want to, what is that expression that we used to talk about in grade school? The melting pot, right? Not the salad bowl, the melting pot. We've got to all sort of be one here together. He reiterated this point and said, listen, we're not going to be part of this at the U.S. We're not going to partake in, in promoting these NGOs that are going to promote these immigration standards, which we don't think are healthy for us or healthy for Europe. Watch.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net.
He's not going to have it. I mean, this is entirely what he ran on. And by the way, this is actually what is seeing him successful. I mean, you look at all the poll numbers, and I realize, somebody, he's not doing as well. I beg to differ, because when you look at the GOP as a whole, who do Americans trust when it comes to the issue of the economy? Guess what? By like a 7-point advantage, the GOP. When it comes to issues of immigration, you got like a 13-point advantage there. Again, GOP. When it comes to law and order, again, GOP. I mean, this is pretty consistent. And so I think there's lots of changes coming. These NGOs that would funnel money to organizations that might not be in our interest, those days are over, as Marco Rubio outlined to one Georgie Poo. I like to call him Georgie Poo. George Stephanopoulos. Did I say it right? He's little Georgie, because whenever I'd go on the set, and believe me, I used to go on ABC Good Morning America. They tried to hire me at one point, but I went to Bloomberg, and I go on the set, and I'm like, come on, can I put my chair up a little, please? Like down here, like at the kids' table, and Georgie would be up here. But in real life, I'm 5'7", plus good set of heels. Georgie's like up to here in real life. Anyway, it's TV. It's TV, baby. He gets to make his guests sit on the little kid's chair. Here he is, Marco, schooling him. Watch.
We shut down AID because it was a dysfunctional organization. We moved it under the State Department. Number two, we are going to do more foreign aid than any country in the world. We're going to do more than anyone in the world again this year. But we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it holistically. We're going to do it as part of an integrated foreign policy. We are not going to fund an NGO industrial complex that built itself up, that was taking a substantial percentage of the money and not going directly to the recipients. It was going to these organizations that had multi-billion-dollar projects and budgets. We're not going to continue to do it that way. We are going to provide aid. We're providing aid now. We just rolled out our new initiative on health. It's going to be much more successful and much more effective. We're going to enter into direct compacts with the countries. We're going to empower our embassies and our ambassadors to direct which projects we fund and how much money countries are going to be receiving. So we are restructuring the way we do aid. It's going to be far more effective, and it's going to be integrated into our holistic foreign policy.
That's all in the future. But are you standing by that comment? You're saying that no one has died?
No, it's happening now. That's not in the future.
No one has died because of the aid cuts? Are all those aid organizations lying?
That's ridiculous. Well, first of all, then they died because England didn't give enough money, or Canada didn't give more, or China did. Let's blame the other countries that don't do any foreign aid. How about China? I mean, China's the second largest economy in the world. They don't give money to these projects.
So you're no longer disputing that the aid cuts have cost people's lives. You're no longer disputing that.
It didn't. I think anybody who tells you that somehow it's the United States, if we cut $1, somehow we're responsible for some horrific thing that's going on in the world is just not true. Beyond that, I would say that in some of these places
that they cite,
not going
the reason why the aid didn't get there, someone's going to die, aren't they?
One of the reasons why some of these places didn't get the aid is not because we cut the aid. It's because there's a war going on and the aid never got to the people. So in Sudan, for example, it's not just a humanitarian catastrophe, it's a war zone. Okay, the aid is stolen, the aid is impeded. In fact, they use aid as a tool against the people, and so blocking aid as a tool.
you understand money is fungible, right? So you can say, okay, we're giving aid money, and then the people in charge, they take that money and they don't send it to the people. They don't get them food. They don't get them aid. They actually use it to buy more weapons. So that's where it becomes very nuanced and very challenging, and you've got to be smart about that, which this team is. This team really and truly is. Donald Trump also addressing the climate issue head on. He said, and I quote, Europe reduced its carbon footprint by 37%. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs and factories, but you reduced your carbon footprint. And so, I think he's just sort of saying enough is enough. All that sacrifice has been totally wiped out, and then some, by a global increase in carbon of 54%. So again, the point being, if you don't have everyone on board and you don't have commitments from the likes of India and China, then how are you really going to get these things done? Finally, somebody with a little bit of common sense. I know it's not always politically correct to hear. I know it freaks some people out sometimes, but listen, if there are things that must be said, must be said. And one of those things that must be said is Jimmy Kimmel is going to fail. And Bob Iger is going to be losing his job. It's only a matter of time. Shareholders can only take so much. The media world is changing. Disney hasn't figured out how to get on board. Their streaming situation is a mess. Their content is not watchable. And their parks are painful. All right? So it's a great brand. I'd love to see it continue. I want to get back to the days when I actually liked Disney. It's going to take a lot to get there. Thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Make a comment in the comments below. It all helps the algorithm. Believe me. And I'll see you right here, back here live tomorrow.